Hindi daw unmute ni ma'am yung ano niya sa Zoom.
Hello? Naririnig na ba ako?
Yes po.
Yes, ma'am.
Ayun. Okay.
Good turn po.
Good afternoon. Okay.
Ayun.
It's the end.
Ano? Pwede nandun.
So these were also the same habitat where there was this rock and it also
Ayan, so good afternoon sa mga participants natin, no? Bago tayo mag-start, kamusta naman kayo dyan, guys? Ayan, nakikita ko madami tayong participants from different, kung saan nang galing. Meron dito mga taga-LPU Manila nakikita ko. Good afternoon, guys. Thank you for coming in our webinar.
Rika, to whom can I send my presentation para if ever magkaroon ako ng problema sa PowerPoint? You can help me.
Wala atin.
Ma'am, pwede niyo po i-send sa akin or kay Keisha po.
Okay, thanks.
A pleasant afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second webisode of our Psych Educational Series, brought to you by the Ocampo Memorial College Guidance and Counseling Department in collaboration with the OMC Psychology Society. So today, we will have another webinar, and for sure, super dami nating matututunan for this session. By the way, before we formally start, let me introduce myself. My name is Rika Yanto, the current Vice President of the OMC Psychology Society, and I am one of the moderators of today's event. And with me, of course,
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Myrtle, and I am the current third-year representative of the UMC Psychology Society. And together with Rika, we will be your moderators for this afternoon. So, Rika, sobrang excited ko talaga for today's talk kasi personally and as a student, I really look up to Mamaki na siya magiging speaker natin for today. So, for sure na marami tayong mababaong lessons right after this webinar.
ayan. So yes, partner, excited din ako na hindi lang tayo yung makaka-experience ng quality knowledge from Ma'am Maki, kundi pati na rin syempre yung mga participants natin for today. Dagdag mo pa yung super timely and relevant topic natin ngayon, which is mental health.
Tama ka dyan. Sobrang timely and relevant na talaga ng topic natin for today. And sobrang welcome lahat ng participants and viewers natin from all ages. So before we proceed, we just want to check our participants by answering the questions on mentimeter.com. So you can scan the code or just click the link in your chat box or just type mentimeter.com and then enter the code on the screen. So the question is, what is that one word that describes you?
Ayan, so nakikita natin yung mga reactions ng participants natin from Mentimeter, no? Magsagot lang kayo dun, guys. Babasahin natin lahat kung ano nga ba yung mga nararamdaman nyo as of today. Ayan, so nakikita natin, dalawa pa lang yung participants natin. Nasa link yung, guys, yung code tsaka yung link ng Mentimeter natin. Ayan, so stress. Yung iba naman, excited. Ayan. Unstable. Ayan, sana maging okay ka after netong webinar natin. Ayan. Ayan, madami na nagsasagot. Ayan, wow, handsome. Talagang naman. Happy, excited. Ayan, alam ko lahat tayo excited kasi maganda yung topic natin for today. Ako ngayon, yung nararamdaman ko, siguro, excited and medyo motivated din. Kasi syempre gusto kong maging smooth sailing yung program natin for today. Ikaw ba, Sena? Anong nararamdaman mo ngayon?
Siyempre, parehas din sa'yo. Super excited din ako sa magiging topic natin ngayon. Like, sobrang dami nating participants ngayon and sure ako na marami rin makaka-relate sa atin. And also, since helpful din yung topic natin ngayon, so I expected na lahat tayo dito is ma-apply kung ano man yung matututunan natin ngayon.
Ayan, so tama. Thank you for sharing all of your sentiments with us, guys. Ayan. So, now let's begin the program with a prayer led by Mr. Christopher Velonza to be followed by our national anthem.
Let us bow our head and put ourselves in the holiness of God. Almighty God, our ever-loving Father, we glorify and thank your name. You have showered us with so much blessings, and your presence continuously reminds us of your faithfulness and guidance. With this, may we humbly ask you to shower our speaker today of your greatest inspiration, so that he may share the most of his knowledge, heart, and soul to the respective topic. May we also absorb the invaluable knowledge experiences and put it into practice what we may learn today. We pray that you bless all the committees in charge, that they may be able to fulfill their tasks responsibly, that the objectives they have set may all be achieved. Your infinite blessing would mean the success of this webinar. May we be a living witnesses of your genuine love through the enactment of the knowledge acquired through this activity. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Sayang mag-ibig, eros ang sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Upang pinilang, tuyan ka ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mo bangaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang
Mr. Velonza, and now we call on Mr. RJ Cruz to give us the rules of today's webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here are the rules of our webinar for today. First is we ask to give your full attention for 1 and 2 hours for this webinar. Second is please disable microphones to avoid distractions to other participants. Third, for Q&A portion, kindly type it on the chat box located on the right side of your screen. The hosts will glad to entertain your question after the discussion. Fourth, at the end of this webinar, we will give the link of the evaluation form for the e-certificates. Make sure that you take a screenshot that you attended for you to receive the e-certificate. Lastly, before we end our program, may we request all participants to open your camera for our photo opportunity. Thank you.
So to start our program, we are very honored to have our very own Dean of College of Arts and Sciences and Head of Psychology Department, none other than Dr. Rhea Luella S. Pfizer.
Welcome and good afternoon. I hope and pray that all of you are safe and healthy. The webinar is very timeless since we had the longest lockdowns. The lockdowns measures have increased the feeling of depression, loneliness, isolation, restlessness, and anxiety among the millions of Filipino people who had been quickly forced to adapt to a new realities and make drastic lifestyles changes, and these are associated with the high rates of psychological distress. In spite of the devastating effects of COVID-19 on mental health, we also recognize that the pandemic has created a pivotal inflection point with the recognition of the importance of the mental health to overall health. Today, we look forward to learning from our very own faculty member of the UMC Psychology Department, Professor Myrtle about the Mental Health 101. I hope that this webinar will be the stepping stone for you and an opportunity to draw an attention to the global scale of mental health problems and identify solutions. I would like to express my gratitude to the UMC Psychology Society officers and members, our technical teams, the UMC Psychology Advisors, Professor Lim and Professor Sioson, and the UMC Psych interns, Rochelle and Marivic, in coordinations with the UMC Psychology Department and the UMC Guidance and Counseling Department to make the psychoeducational webinar series possible. To the resource speaker, Professor Myrtle Mackham, we thank you for agreeing to share your insight and expertise to us. To our participants from Zoom and Facebook Live who are tuning with us, thank you for taking your time to be with us, and we appreciate it. In behalf of the UMC, I would like to warmly welcome everyone today. Thank you again for your participation.
Thank you, Dean Rhea, for that opening remarks. And to proceed, may I call on Mr. Chris Yancy Teves to introduce our resource speaker for today.
Thank you, Sana. So our resource speaker for today's webinar is none other than our very beautiful professor, Miss Myrtle P. Mackham. She is a mental health advocate and lecturer, licensed professional teacher, and registered psychometrician. Graduated BS Psychology in Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila. Graduated MA Psychology major in Industrial Psychology in Rizal Tech University. Took up Masters of Arts in Teaching English Language in Philippine Normal University. Currently taking up her doctorate degree in Forensic Psychology at Far Eastern University, Manila, and just finished her 500-hour internship at PsychStart Services. Worked in HR for 10 years and handled payroll and leave management, recruitment and employment services, and training and staff development. Coordinator and representative of Public Employment Services of Manila for the Department of Labor and Employment for 3 years. Psychology professor for 10 years in IRIS and 3 years in Dio Campo. Former head of the Psychology Department of IRIS Manila from 2015 to 2020. A member of the Philippine Mental Health Association, Psychological Association of the Philippines, coach and life mentors of Dolly. So let's give her a warm welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Naririnig ba ako? Am I loud and clear?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon po.
Okay, so I can see we have a lot of participants. No, I'm amazed. Akala ko less than 100 lang. Anyway, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. Okay, I was not expecting a large number of participants, pero I'm glad na mas maraming makakaalam ng mental health because this is not just the concern of psychology majors. This is also the concern of, actually this is the concern of everyone. Okay, siguro na lang, raise your hand if you're a psych major para makita ko kung ilan ang hindi at ilan ang ano. Raise your hand if you're a psych major. Let me see. Ilan? Ay, may raise hand ba dito? Meron bang ganun dito? Wala. Wala, no?
Meron po, ma'am. As of now po, 34 po yung nag-raise hand. Ay, 36. Pero madami pa pong nagre-raise hand. 41.
Marami.
Opo.
Okay. So, around ilan? Okay.
Yung week po, 42.
I also invited my students. Okay, 120 of my students I also invited them. Pero hindi naman siya required. Kasi syempre, pinag-aaralan naman nila. So, mas maganda kung yung ibang audience naman ang ma-cater natin this afternoon. Okay, so around how many, Rika?
Yung peak po kanina, 42, yung nag-raise hand.
Okay, kasama tayo. So, siguro around 50, right? Okay, so around 50 ang psych major. So that means no marami ang ngayon pa lang no, kumbaga ngayon pa lang nila possibly maiintindihan what mental health really is all about. Okay, so I hope you'll be able to learn no with I try not to be too technical kasi I've been used to giving lectures to psych majors. So medyo iba yung approach no pag ano kasi we are studying psychology no. Tuloy-tuloy yon. So iba yung approach pag sila sa kanila ako nagbibigay ng lecture. And since a lot of our audience this afternoon are non-psych, so I'll try to explain it as simple as possible. Okay? Na maiintindihan kahit hindi psych. Okay, so can we now start with our presentation? Okay, so this is Mental Health 101. So, diba, when we use the term 101 is usually, it pertains to information or introductory information. So this is an introduction to mental health and well-being. And why did I include the term well-being? Because when we're talking about mental health, no, it goes beyond the absence of an illness. No, hindi dapat na ma-stop lang na wala kang mental illness, but more than anything, no, we all strive to be at our best, no. We all strive to be in our optimal functioning. So yan yung pinaka-focus natin, no, to live a highly productive, no, and functional life. So that's what and of course, a great deal quality of life. Okay, so dyan pumapasok yung well-being, no? So this is what I'm going to discuss. Now, when we talk about the basics, it's not just merely the psychological concepts of mental health, but I'll be covering that. Okay. But more than anything, I'll also be covering the legal aspect. No? It's important na naiintindihan natin yung legal aspect because as we all know, we already have the Mental Health Act here in the Philippines. So siguro aware na rin naman kayo. So I'm sure marami rin dito nagtatrabaho. And part of there's already, the Department of Labor and Employment already release their guidelines when it comes to the implementation of the mental health program in the workplace. So kasama na yan, no, nagko-comply na. Kaya madalas din ako maimbita sa iba't ibang kumpanya to talk about mental health. There's ano, okay. Yun. So madalas din akong ma-invite. Okay. So concern na talaga siya ng lahat. Okay? So and aside from that, since we experience the pandemic, as mentioned by Dr. Pfizer earlier, I believe everyone experienced distress during the pandemic. I myself, for one, I experienced great distress. I lost my dog, I lost my mom last year. Okay, so and it's not it's a very painful event, and I'm only human to also be in distress. Kahit kaming mga mental health providers, we also experience distress. Kasi tao rin lang naman kami. We are also affected by this events, or untoward circumstances. And that's normal. So how much more yung isang individual na wala namang masyadong background with mental health, Okay. Siguro hindi natin pwedeng ikahon na ang mental health ay concern lang ng mga psych major, It is as I've mentioned earlier, it is actually the concern of everyone because every one of us experience psychological distress. Okay? So let's start. So aatakihin ko siya in such a way that it should be based on researches. Kasi yun ang namin yun ang focus namin lagi when it comes to the information should always be empirical. So I'll attack the information based on the laws, the different researches, and the information issued by the World Health Organizations. So ito yung aking mga topics. These are the topics that I'm going to cover this afternoon. So I'll give, of course, the objectives. I'll define mental health based on the law, the Mental Health Act here in the Philippines, and then of course based on the World Health Organization. And then what's the relevance? Why do we need to talk about mental health? Okay, and then what are the misconceptions and the challenges that this issue is experiencing nowadays? Okay, and then what's the nature and background of mental health? What are the signs and symptoms to know whether you are indeed experiencing a psychological distress? And of course, we cannot just talk about the negative side or the presence of the disease. What should be done about it? So what are the different coping? Pero medyo general lang, dadaanan ko lang to pahapyaw kasi madami tayong topics. So what is psychological wellness? What can we do? Yung self-care na tinatawag, psychological self-care, ano ba yan? Okay? And then of course, I also give information about ano yung mga mental health service providers na available dito sa Pilipinas na kung sakali tayo ay nakakaranas ng psychological distress or we know someone or people who are experiencing and we want to help them, at least alam natin kung saan natin sila i-refer. Okay? So let's start. Okay, so the objective of this talk is, of course, to gain deeper understanding of what mental health is. Okay, so we'll have the nature and the background of mental health, and then to be aware of the nature of mental health and mental health problems. We will also clarify different misconceptions on mental health, para mabawasan yung tinatawag nating stigma. Yun kasi ang problema pag nakakalungkot in the social media may mga stigmatizing posts pertaining to mental health, Okay, so we'll also cover that. You'll also be able to recognize the different warning signs and symptoms if there is really the presence of mental health problems, and then learn ways to prevent and cope with mental health issues on different levels. Ano ba yung different levels? It's either you are the one experiencing it or you know someone who's experiencing it. Okay, and of course know the different mental health service providers. Okay. Continue. Next. Okay, so let's define mental health. according to the World Health Organization, ito yung definition na binigay ng World Health, no? Mental health is the state of well-being. So, kaya makikita nyo, hindi nawawala yung term na well-being, no, sa mental health, in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities. So, realization of abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life. So, there's coping mechanism, can work productively. So, mental health also tackles on being productive, being a productive individual, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution.
Ma'am, nakamute po kayo, ma'am.
Nakamute po kayo.
Saan ako na mute? Saang part? Was I able to, dito lang?
Opo, ma'am, dito lang.
Ay, dito lang. Okay. So ito yung according to the World Health, for someone to know if there is the presence of mental health, is there is the realization of abilities, there is the coping, no? There's coping mechanism with if people are experiencing stress, no, in life, in his or her daily life. There is also the being productive, no, and fruitful, and being able to be an asset to his or her community and the society. Okay? Now, next please. There is also the definition, halos pareho lang naman, no, the definition given by the Philippine Mental Health, na inangkor, no, at nag-benchmark din naman with the one given by the World Health Organization. Okay? So if you can see there's also the realization of one's own abilities and potentials, no? Ang maganda dito dinagdag yung potentials, because sometimes hindi pa natin ganun kakilala yung sarili natin, di ba? Yung kakayahan mo at nadidiscover mo lang yan in the course of your life, no? With your dealings with other people, with work, with the situations that you're in. Saka mo lang na ay, meron pala akong potential sa ganito. So maganda na inad yung part na yon. Okay? There's also, of course, coping. And then, ayan, ito, I really like this one. Displaying resilience in the face of extreme life events. I really like this definition. Kasi, ang problema, I'll also mention this later, problems are normal. No? Being distressed is also normal. Okay? Pero, what matters here is, despite of these negativities that happen in our daily life, were you able to, still be resilient, no, and face these adversities? So napaka-importante na dapat resilient ka, no? Kaya mong i-handle kahit ano pa yung dumating. And I believe naman sa mga studies din naman, Filipinos are basically resilient. Kitang-kita naman, no? Ang lalakayan ng mga disaster and calamities na na-experience natin, but we're still able to, to smile, no, and go through life and find humor, no, in these difficulties. Ganun. Okay. And the rest, same then, working productively and fruitfully, and making a positive contribution to the community. So malalim ang mental health, no? Hindi lang siya yung wala kang sakit, hindi ka distressed, may mental health ka na. No, it goes beyond that. Okay? So let's now go to the next slide. Okay. So what is the mental health state in the Philippines? So this one I got from different sources, and I also got it from the Department of Health. Okay. So ngayon, no, the World Health estimated that 154 million Filipinos suffer because of the pandemic. So halos lahat tayo nakaranas ng depression. Kasi, oh my God, ang dami talagang tragedy, no? Sakit, death, ang dami nating na-experience, no? And then there's also 1 million are suffering, no? Very common, schizophrenia. Schizophrenia, by the way, is a psychotic disorder. So this is a severe form of mental disorder. And then there's also a lot of Filipinos are suffering from substance use disorders. When we say substance use, marami po yan, no? Ang pinakilala kasing substance natin is, of course, drugs. There's also yung smoking, no, nicotine, and there's also alcohol. So yung mga consumption na yan, they all fall under the substance use disorders. At marami rin ang nagsasuffer sa ganyan. And a big chunk of our youth today, no, malaki din ang namamatay due to suicide. And sometimes it is suicide kasi, well, this is extreme cases of clinical depression na. And sometimes it's comorbidity with anxiety. So they experience hopelessness and helplessness, parang wala ng hope, wala ng tutulong, wala ng paraan, and they decided to end their life. That's a very distressing thought. Okay. Another is, mental illness has become the third. Can you imagine, no? Pangatlo, most common disability in the Philippines, no? Wherein 6 million Filipinos live in anxiety. And because of this, the country has the third highest rate of mental disorders here in the Western Pacific. Okay? And then also, mental disorders greatly affect employment and education. And of course, alam naman na concern ng lahat yan, employment and education. Most especially those in the ages 25 to 52 years old. Really concerns everyone. There is someone na nag-open na pakiano na lang. Thank you. Okay, so the Mental Health Act here in the Philippines was signed into law in 2018, and it took effect in July 5. So it's called, to be more tawag dito, specific, it's an act establishing a national mental health policy for the purpose of enhancing the delivery of integrated mental health services, promoting and protecting the rights of persons, utilizing psychosocial health services, appropriating funds therefore, and other purposes. And the main agency in charge of this is the Department of Health. Okay, and since nagsisimula pa lang, no, marami pang dapat gawin para mas pagtibayin, no, yung pagpo-promote ng mental health dito sa Pilipinas. And I believe dalawa pa lang na lugar ang may local or established and approved mental health program. And this is Pangasinan and Baguio. Kaya nagkaroon ng pag-uusap dito, kasi I'm in Manila, by the way. I'm in the city of Manila, and I'm working in the City Council of Manila. Nasa legislative ako, I always represent my boss in the discussions pertaining to health. So part ako, sumasali ako sa mga discussions ng City Council pertaining to mental health. Okay, so nag-start na rin naman, no? Nasa first reading na yung mental health program, but I suggested kasi ang daming dapat baguhin. Nag-benchmark kami with the one done by the Baguio. Ang galing ng Baguio. Maganda yung kanilang mental health program. Okay, that's why yung aking internship na clinic, kasi virtual naman yung internship ko. Sa isang Baguio clinic ako kasi magagaling yung mga psychologists sa Baguio. Okay? Sige. Next, please. Okay. Ano ba? Sabi sa batas na to, may mga karapatan daw yung mental health users. Sino ba itong mga mental health users? Mental health users ay, it's not necessarily that you're the one who are experiencing a mental health distress. No? Maybe you know someone, you're involved with it. It's important that you know the rights of these people who are considered mental health users. Of course, this is under the Republic Act 11036. Okay. The first one is to exercise all their inherent rights, respecting individual qualities, abilities, and diversity of background from any form of discrimination and stigmatization. Okay? Let's face it, yung mga nakakaranas ng mental illness, meron pa ring diskriminasyon at stigma. No? Talamak pa rin yan, yung stigmatization yan. Makikita natin yan with how arts, no, how mental health is portrayed sometimes in the arts. Hindi ko nilalahat, no? At nakakalungkot, no? Pero natutuwa rin ako na yung mga mental health service providers lahat nagtutulungan para i-promote talaga what really mental health is all about. Okay? So dapat walang diskriminasyon. Okay? And of course, there should be a humane, evidence-based treatment. Okay, ibig sabihin yung serbisyo, yung psychological services, na binibigay sa mga sa mga nakakaranas ng mga mental health issue, dapat holistic by nature, no? Integrating holistic prevention, promotion, rehabilitation, care and support, and of course, affordable essential mental health and social services. Okay. So, ito na rin yung trabaho ng mga local health departments, no, sa buong Pilipinas. And then there should be access to aftercare and rehabilitation when possible in the community for the purpose of social reintegration and inclusion. Ang mga po natin, ang mga nakakaranas ng psychological distress, what we're after is for them to go back in their normal functioning and become productive members of the society again, no? Hindi dapat sila ikakahon or i-define lang base sa naranasan nilang mental health issue. Okay? And then of course there should be access, no, to adequate information. This is an example, no. Nagbibigay tayo ng mga webinars para maipaalam natin sa publiko what mental health really is, what are the services pertaining to mental health. And then of course, even if you're not psych major, you can actually be part of the mental health advocacy. Pwede rin tayo maging part ng policy planning, legislation, service provision, monitoring, research, and evaluation. Okay? If you know we have this service we call psychological first aid or mental health first response. Hindi po yan exclusive for psych majors. Maganda po na lahat tayo marunong magbigay ng psychological first aid. We can actually undergo training para matulungan natin yung mga tao na nakakaranas nga ng mental health. Psychological first aid is just merely giving immediate response, no, sa mga may mental health issue. It doesn't concern treatment, no, kasi syempre professionals na ang in charge, no, when it comes to the treatment and rehabilitation of these people who are experiencing mental health issues. Okay? There should be confidentiality. Okay, alam niyo naman po siguro ibig sabihin ng confidentiality. Isasama ko na rin dyan yung privacy, no? We have the Data Privacy Act already. So it's important na napoprotektahan po yung mga informations. These informations are personal by nature. So dapat napoprotektahan yung mga informasyon ng mga taong may mental health concern. And then there's also giving of informed consent. Ano ba yung informed consent? Okay, alam dito ng mga psych majors. Ang informed consent po is before you receive a treatment or care, okay, dapat magbibigay ka ng consent mo. And for you to give your consent, you should be properly informed of what the treatment of or care is all about. What would be the consequences? What are the methods involved? And you also have the right, no? Tandaan niyo po ito. Kung hindi po kayo na-satisfied dun sa treatment or care, you actually have the right to decline and withdraw. Karapatan po yan ng isang tao. Okay? And then of course, access to the clinical records. Dapat alam nila kung ano ba yung findings sa kanila, ano yung diagnosis nila, no? It's important that you are aware. Ano nga ba yung pinagdadaanan mo? Are you really clinically depressed? Meron ka nga ba talagang para alam mo kung ano yung pwede mong gawin. Kasi ang healing po nagsisimula sa healing starts with the acceptance that you are indeed suffering from a mental health disorder. So, dapat alam mo rin kung ano yung pinagdadaanan mo para mas maintindihan mo because you will definitely be part of your treatment, of your healing. Okay? However, it should not be revealed just to anyone. Ang dapat dito yung involved na health professional tsaka ikaw. And of course, kung minor po yan, dapat okay? Or if it's tawag dito, hindi capable to give a consent, laging dapat may legal guardian yung isang minor o yung isang may mental health disability. Okay? So yan po yun. And then, of course, you can actually file complaints if there is abuse in mental health care or kaya there is violations with the provision of the mental health services. Okay, so ito po yung karapatan ng mga mental health users. Lahat po tayo ay pwedeng maging mental health users. Okay? Next please. Okay. So I already gave the the rights of the mental health users. But what is really the relevance of mental health? Okay, so ito po yung mga ano. Poor mental health make us more vulnerable to certain physical health problems and mental illness. Okay. We have this notion of mind and body interaction, or yung duality, meaning your physical health affects your mental health in the same manner that your mental health affects your physical health. So it's important that you have good mental health para maging maganda rin yung physical health. Okay? And if you have a good mental health, it helps you think clearly, have a more positive outlook, and you tend to enjoy your life more. Okay? Bakit? Kasi you get the most out of life. Okay? So, importante talaga yan. And then, if our mental health is good, we are able to cope with the difficult times of our lives. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, difficulties are normal. So, kung yung nararanasan natin ngayon, akala natin matindi na, hindi pa natin alam. Diba? So, possible na may iba pa tayong mararanasan in the future. But what's important here, if you have good mental health, you'll be able to cope, no, despite this upcoming adversities, no. And what's good about having mental health, you tend to be more creative. You tend to be more innovative. Why ideas keep coming? Because you're not focusing on of the negativities in life, and then you tend to be more open to trying new things. So mas nadi-discover mo yung potentials mo. And with mental health, you tend to have better relationships with people around you. Okay? And you tend to have a better relationship with yourself. Napaka-importante doon, no? Dapat magsimula sa sarili. Dapat maganda yung pagtingin mo sa sarili mo. Okay? Pero dapat, syempre, makatotohanan ng tingin mo sa sarili mo. Okay? Okay. And of course, you cannot give something that you don't have. So it's important that you have a good relationship with yourself for you to be able to have good relationship with other people. Okay? So good mental health also enables us to work productively, reach our full potential, so that we'll be able to give meaningful contributions to our family, to our community, to our society, and to the groups that we belong to, kung saan man yan. And of course, it will also improve our moods, our disposition, and of course, our self-esteem. Malaking bagay yan, no? You won't be able to be productive if you have a low self-esteem. Okay? So ganito ka-importante ang mental health, no? Apektado lahat ng aspeto ng buhay natin. Kaya dapat concern natin lahat ito. Okay, next please. Mabilis ba ako? Tama, okay lang. Okay lang naman? Okay.
Okay lang po, ma'am.
Okay. So at this part, no, we have the misconceptions, no. Ang daming misconceptions tayong naririnig about mental health. Okay. So the first misconception is all people with mental illness are crazy. Nakakalungkot, no. Ano yung mga ginagamit natin? Baliw, may saltik, may crazy, right? These are all hurtful words. And it feed into the stereotypes of mental illness. Ano ang delikado dito? It perpetuates that idea that if you're mentally ill, you're wild, you're uncontrollable, no? And parang you are disassociated with reality. Pero hindi naman lahat ng nakakaranas ay hindi lang siya maganda, stigmatizing kasi siya, no? Remember, mental health illnesses can range from mild to severe. And they can sometimes come and they can even go. Okay? Siguro, meron naman din talagang specific disorders like the psychotic disorders, no? Na pwede nating sabihin na they're somewhat crazy because they are experiencing, no? They're disassociated with reality, no? And they are experiencing hallucinations and delusions. Ito po yung mga may schizophrenia, tsaka, yes, there are different kinds of schizophrenia, tsaka mga dissociative disorders, okay? Pero these symptoms only tend to be present in few and specific mental health disorders, but not all. So hindi magandang ikahon mo na lahat ng may mental illness ay baliw, diba? Okay. Second misconception. Okay. The second misconception is, wait. Okay, illnesses and health disorders are extremely rare. Siguro nakita nyo naman yung binigay ko kaninang background, no? Galing sa World Health at saka sa Department of Health. Common po siya, no? Marami Pilipino ang nakakaranas ng mga mental health issues. So, I think that's the answer for this misconception. Let's have the third one. Ayan. Mental illnesses make people violent. Not all, no? It depends on the disorder. Siguro yung mga nakakaranas ng specific type, yung may mga nakakaranas ng psychosis, o kaya yung the personality disorder that laging associated with criminality or criminal behavior, which is the antisocial personality disorder. Okay? Pero other than that, hindi po, no? Hindi lahat ay violente. So, hindi po maganda yung notion na yan. Okay? Let's have the fourth one. Okay. Mental illness, people with mental illness cannot function in society. Hindi rin po, no? Ang daming highly functioning individuals who are actually suffering from mental illness. I myself, I've experienced depression, of course, when I lost my mom. Pero instead of, I know I experienced depression, no, during that time. Pero, I still work. I'm still, actually, mas naging productive ako nung ako nakakaranas ng mga ganon, yung mga ganong emosyon. Okay, so depende rin yan sa tao. Okay, though there are illnesses that can be crippling, no, to individuals, but other than that, no. Yung marami akong kilala na they are experiencing mental health illness and they still function in the society. Okay? You cannot get better if you have a mental illness. That's not true. Meron na po tayong iba't ibang klase ng treatments, no? Therapies that are available for those experiencing mental health illness. Okay? Kaya marami po tayong mental health professionals. We have, of course, psychometricians. We have psychologists, no? Especially clinical psychologists. They are the ones who offer psychotherapy, no, for those experiencing mental health disorders. And then we have psychiatrists, no, sila naman po in charge sa medication, no, sila po yung nagre-reseta ng gamot because psychiatrists po are medical doctors, no, they are not psychology majors, no, iba po sila, pero they are considered mental health professional. Partner po yan, no, partner po natin. It's important na ma-realize po natin na kailangan natin ang tulong ng psychiatrist tsaka ng psychologist kasi magkaiba po yung kanilang trabaho when it comes to treating mental health patients. Okay, so they provide the medication, and medication is very important. Bakit? Kasi if there is hormonal imbalance, the psychotherapy may not be effective to certain individuals. However, okay, yung medication, hindi rin po natin, parang ayaw din natin na magtagal na under medication ng isang tao. No? Eventually, gusto natin na maalis din siya sa medication at maturuan siya ng psychotherapy, no, giving yung ways on how to go back, no, to his or her normal functioning. Okay, and that's through the psychotherapy, and this is being given by psychologists. Okay, so yun po yung mga mental health professionals natin. And the last one, treatment is scary. Siguro gone are the days na nababalitaan natin yung tawag dito na yung mental health ay tawag dito yung very scary yung kanilang mga treatments, no, katulad ng mga shock therapy, their straight jackets, their padded rooms, lobotomy, yung nag-eksperimento sa utak, and then there's also a lot of medication, mess of pills, pero those are the thing of the past anymore. No, marami na pong makabagong treatment na they consist of combination of mental health therapy methods. Of course, kasama nga yung binanggit ko kanina, medication if necessary, and of course, psychotherapy. And this, as much as possible, one of our ethics is not to provide harm to our clients, no, sa ating clientele. So they are now, the therapy are now adjusted to avoid adverse reactions for this individual. So it's no longer scary. Okay, so next please. Ayan, binanggit ko na to kanina, no. Problems, struggles, difficulties, and distresses are actually normal. No, wala pong tao na hindi po nakakaranas nito. In the same manner that feeling depressed, feeling stressed, and feeling anxious are also normal. No? Oh, sige. Next, please. Okay. Ano ba yung mga mental health problems, no? Actually, mental health problems, they include a wide range of experiences. If you're, sa amin po, hindi kami basta-basta, nakakalungkot minsan kasi may mga kabataan ngayon na nagse-self-diagnose, no? Sasagot lang sila ng test online, and then sasabihin na nila, I'm clinically depressed, or I'm like this, no? I think I have anxiety. Hindi po ganun yun, no? It doesn't work that way. Kaya nga sinasabi, diba, that you have to consult with a professional. Kasi po, mamaya itatakal ko yun. Paano ba ginagawa yung pagda-diagnose ng isang mental health, no? And paano mo malalaman if there is a mental health problem, no? If it affects the way you think, you feel, or you behave, crippling na talaga siya, you're not functional anymore, then that could be a sign, no? And mental health problems can actually affect irrespective of age. Doon sa amin, may tinatawag po kaming sa psychology na DSM, or Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is being used, of course, by mental health professionals for the diagnosis of a mental health disorder. At doon po nakikita yung criteria para malaman if what you're experiencing fall under a specific disorder. Okay. At wide range po yan, no? May mga sakit na sa mga bata pa lang nagsa-start na, no? I think you're familiar with autism, with ADHD, no, mga selective mutism, yan, no, identified din sa mga bata. Pagdating naman sa mga teenagers, there's yung mga conduct disorders, no, and then pagdating and there's also, of course, yung pag adult na personality disorders. Meron ding sakit din pagdating naman sa aging, no, yung naririnig niyo na po siguro yung mga dementia, no, tsaka yung mga Alzheimer's disease. So, irrespective of age, irrespective of personality or background, lahat po ay pwedeng maka-experience ng mental health. Okay? Mental health issue. They can appear as a result of experiences in both our personal and other aspect of our life. And they can come about without any easily identifiable cause. Pwedeng biglang nag-appear na lang sila nang hindi mo maintindihan. Kaya it's important that you consult with a professional para makita talaga yung causality, yung cause, no, nung isang sitwasyon, no? And of course, mental health problems may be mild or moderate, while others may take on a more severe form. Wherein a severe form is talagang wala na, no? Hindi na nagfa-function talaga. And it affects a person's ability to cope with the day-to-day living. Okay? Next, please. Okay, so these are the common mental health problems. Okay, so we have anxiety. Okay, clarify ko lang po yung yung iba kasi na paghahalo-halo nila yung stress, anxiety. Stress is also a health problem.
Kala ko sasabihin ko sana inubos na.
Okay. Stress, anxiety, and depression. Okay, all of these are distresses, no? Lahat po, so disruptions po to. But you are experiencing depression if the source of your distress is something that happened in the past. Yun po yung depression, ha? Okay, like for example, nangyari pa nung bata ka pa, no? And you're still experiencing distress because of what happened in the past, then possible na ma-diagnose ka with a depression. And if you're experiencing difficulty handling the pressure, no, that you're experiencing the stress of what's happening in present, that's more of a stress. Okay. And if your distress, the source of your distress is what could happen in the future, that's more of an anxiety. Yun po yung, tingnan nyo lang po yung timeline. No? Yun po yung tinitin. Okay? And there's also nabanggit ko na anxiety, stress, and depression. There's eating problems, no? I think you are aware, common siya sa mga babaeng adolescents or teenagers, no? Eating problems, no? Anorexia nervosa, bulimia, and there's also binge eating, yung kain ng kain, no? To cope with the distress, walang ginawa kundi kumain oras-oras. Okay? And there's also first schizophrenia. Ito po yung, pag sinabi po natin schizophrenia, ito po yung medyo severe form of mental health disorder na nagkakaroon ng hallucination and delusions. Okay? And there are a lot of forms of schizophrenia. And then there's phobia, which is irrational fear of an object. Hindi alam po saan nag-start, no? Pero may intense irrational fear ka about something. Kaya meron yung mga arachnophobia, claustrophobia, no? So yun po yung mga iba't ibang klase. And then there's also OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder. So from the term itself, obsessive, repetitive thoughts, compulsive, repetitive actions, and it becomes a pattern that it disrupts your functioning, so it becomes an OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and sometimes it's associated with severe cleanliness, no? And neatness. Okay, and there's also bipolar disorder. So from the word itself, bipolar, a combination of mania tsaka depression, no? Yung hyper tapos hypo. Okay, so it's a manic depressive disorder. That's why it's called disorder. There's also different kinds of personality disorders. Okay, marami po yan. Meron tayong may paranoid personality disorder, may dependent personality disorder, antisocial, no? Usually mga may associated with criminality, criminal behavior. It started out with a conduct disorder during teenager at nagtuloy, no, na naging antisocial, meaning they have no parang it's a pattern for them to violate the rules and regulations of the society. Okay? And there's also, of course, narcissistic. Siguro, common din yun sa inyo. May mga kilala kayong mga narcissus, narcissistic, okay? Yung mga I, me, myself. Okay? There's, grandiosity, no? Heightened superiority with among these individuals. And there's also PTSD. No, PTSD po is post-traumatic stress disorder, which is usually experienced after a tragic event. Pero hindi po siya automatic na pag naka-experience ka ng tragedy, may PTSD ka. Kailangan ma-test muna yan whether trauma is indeed present in an individual. Okay? Next, please. Okay. Para maintindihan po natin, may tinatawag po kaming mental health continuum. Kasi akala ng iba, it's mental health is just about polarity. Mali po yun, you're well and you're not. Parang ganun lang. It's actually a continuum, meaning pwede kang mapunta sa gitna, no? Pwede ka dito banda. Mas mataas ba yung wellness mo sa problema mo, sa distress mo? Or mas mataas ang distress mo sa wellness mo. Okay? So it can go up, it can change over time depending on the circumstances in our lives. Depending on the people, no? May mga taong nakaka-stress. I don't know if you experience that in your life, pero there are people na napaka-negatibo, na parang ayaw niyong kausap, kaya lang they are living in our midst. At kailangan nating pakisamahan. However, once na pinakisamahan mo sila, parang stress na stress ka sa kanila. No? There are people who are like that. Unfortunately, we are affected. No? Naapektuhan tayo ng mga ganong klase ng tao. Okay, continue tayo sa mental health continuum. Yung next slide, para mas maintindihan natin. O, ganito po yung mental health continuum. Ha? It's either you have pwede kasing you have a good mental well-being, but you are experiencing mental illness. Possible pa rin yun. Nagkataon lang na mataas, magaling yung coping mechanism mo. Yun yung tinatawag na resilience. Kaya mataas ang resilience ng tao is maganda yung kanyang coping mechanism. Okay. So ang pinaka-ideal is you have optimal mental well-being and you have minimum mental illness. Hindi zero. Kasi walang tao na hindi nakakaranas ng distress, no? Lahat tayo nakakaranas. Simpleng ma-traffic nga lang, distressful na eh, di ba? Okay. So ito yung ideal, no? This is the ideal state of functioning where a person experience happiness with no mental illness. Possible din naman na mahina yung coping mechanism mo at wala ka rin, minimum din yung mental illness mo. So this is the subjective state of grief or unhappiness that a person experiences in the absence of any noticeable. Possible lang na nalulungkot ka lang, no, you feel unhappy. I think there are situations na wala ka naman actually in disorder, pero siguro negatibo lang talaga tingin. Na may taong ganun din eh, na madaling maapektuhan ng nangyayari sa buhay, no? Ang bilis mag-change ng mood, no? Yung mood. And then if you have pwede rin your experience, you have a very good coping mechanism, and then you have mental illness. Possible yon. These are individuals having a high sense of subjective well-being. Inaalagaan nila yung sarili nila despite suffering from a mental illness. And ito yung maganda, no? Ito yung dapat, no? Na despite experiencing depression, anxiety, eating disorders, dapat you're doing something to cope with it. Ito dapat, okay? And of course, the worst one, no, the lowest level of functioning is when a person feels languishing, has down now, and has significant mental illness. And this is the time na possible na nakakaranas na makaisip, no, magkaroon ng suicidal ideations, suicidal thoughts, suicidal plans yung isang tao. Okay, continue tayo. Okay, so ito siya. Ito yung continuum. If you're healthy, you're normally functioning, no? Okay. Now, if you have a mild, pag mild yan yung nasa gitna, mild and moderate. Mild if there are common and reversible distress. So for example, yung nasa-stress kayo, mag-exam, yan, like ako, in 3 weeks time, I'm going to take my comprehensive examination before kasi magde-dissertation na ako for my doctorate in forensic psychology sa August. Hopefully, maging doctor na by next year. Okay? So, nasa-stress na ako kasi mahihirap na, kumbaga, no? I think that's a mild stress, distress lang I'm experiencing, a mild distress. But I'm also excited. No? I wanted to pass the exam because I really wanted to be a doctor. Okay. Now, moderate naman if there is already a significant functional impairment na apektuhan na. Like for example, mga crippling talaga yung death, medyo matindi yan, of course. Breakups, diba? Let's face it, masakit na kung mahaba. Well, depende rin yan, no? Sa quality na nag-break. At depende how you view that relationship. Pero kung yan ay yung ilang taong kayo na parang nag-grow ka na sa relasyon na yon and then suddenly iniwan ka, no? Iniwan ka pa sa for a very parang hindi magandang rason, no? Mas lalong masakit, no? Okay. Mga medyo significant yan. Unemployment could also be a significant functional impairment. And then if you're really experiencing clinically na talaga, no? Pasok ka na sa criteria na nandoon sa diagnosis, then that could be a severe form, no? Severe means there is a persistent functional impairment. Okay, hindi ka na lumalabas ng bahay, hindi ka na naliligo, hindi ka na kumakain, hindi ka na natutulog. Yan. Severe na yan, no? Depression, anxiety, PTSD. Okay, so these are examples. Next. Next, please. Okay, so ito yon, example lang naman yon. No? If you're in crisis, very anxious, very low mood, ito, binabanggit mo, very poor sleep, so extreme siya. You can also be struggling, okay? If you have a moderate level. So, pwedeng pumasok dito yung struggling, moderate form of distress. Now, if you have a mild, maybe you're surviving, no? But if you have a good mental health, you are thriving, no? Okay. Yung surviving, kasi akala ng iba, yung karamihan ng tao nandito lang. Nasa surviving lang. Basta walang sakit, okay na. Okay? Pero hindi dapat ganun eh, no? We should aim for an optimal quality, optimal functioning, and a very good quality of life. So we should aim for to thrive, no? Ito, positive, calm, and excelling. Actually, itong area na to ng thriving and excelling, dito na po pumapasok yung bagong area ng psychology, which is positive psychology, no? Kasi yung absence of psychological disorder is just merely surviving. Okay, but we should go beyond that, no? Ang gusto natin, live our life, gusto natin to live our life at best, no? So that's thriving and excelling. So that's what we're after. Okay? And sometimes we struggle. Minsan nandito, napupunta-punta tayo dito. Depende sa sitwasyon. Okay? Next, please. Next, please, Keisha. Okay. Ano ba yung i-consider natin na there's already the presence of psychopathology or abnormality, no, sa iyong mental health? Okay. Ito po yun. Ito po yung tinitingnan namin. Yung 4Ds na tawag namin dito. Unang-una, if it's the presence of deviance, okay, meaning extreme, unusual, bizarre behavior. Okay, it's distressful, meaning it feels unpleasant and upsetting, no, on the individual who is suffering. And of course, it's crippling, no, it's dysfunctional, disruptive na to your to conduct your daily activities in a constructive manner. And of course, there's already danger. The danger not only to others, but also danger to yourself. No, there's carelessness, there's poor judgment, and there's hostility. Now, if there is the presence of this 4, then that could mean there's already the presence of a mental health problem. Okay, next please. So why do they exist? Bakit ba nag-e-exist? Okay. Tingnan po natin, ano yung mga perspectives, no? Ano ba yung mga binigay na the psychology of abnormality? Dito yon, no? Ano ang dahilan bakit nakakaranas ng mental health problems ang mga tao? So these are the perspectives on causation. First, it's possible that it's biological. No? The causality is biological, meaning there is genetic defects, there is faulty genes, and especially mga autism, no? Yung may mga ganyan. Disabilities, there's also physical deprivation, extreme malnutrition, no, brain pathology, traumatic brain injury, lahat yan possible na mag-cause ng mental health problem. But not necessarily lahat, okay? So, pero this could be one cause, no, biological. There is a problem physiologically. Next is, it could be psychoanalytic. Okay, yung psychoanalytic po, ito ay konsepto po ng father of personality psychology, which is Freud, of course. Si Freud pinakilala, no, sa psychology. Sabi ni Freud, kaya daw po nagkakaroon ng abnormality is because there are urges, desires, no, yung mga internal forces na hindi na ilalabas ng tao, hindi na re-release. And we are also affected by our childhood experiences, no? Childhood experience, and there's also a problem with our relationship, early relationship with our mothers and fathers. Yun ang ano niya. And yun ang tawag to, sinasabi ni Freud na reason, because of unconscious, and hindi na ilalabas. Kaya nga po ang psychoanalysis, ang isa sa ano niya para malaman ang unconscious desires and urges of an individual is there is what you call talking out therapy. Diyan po nagsimula. Yung magsalita ka lang, no, ilabas mo. It's also called free association or talking out po siya for cathartic release. Okay. Siguro aware kayo sa pelikulang Purge, The Purge. Somehow it's similar in such a way that nilalabas kasi yung mga tensions, no, ng isang tao. Yun nga lang, medyo violente lang yung idea ng The Purge. But it's the same thing na dapat, dito kasi, ilalabas mo lang through kwento, no? Salita ka lang ng salita. So yun yung sinasabi na dahilan daw, no? It's because of a not healthy relationship with especially with the opposite sex parent. So if you're if you're a girl or you're a woman, your relationship mo with your father, and if you're a man, your relationship with your mother. And if that's problematic, it could affect you in your later life. Okay, next please. Then we have behavioristic. Okay, when you say behaviorism po, ibig sabihin na kondisyon. No, natutunan mo siya, pwedeng naobserbahan mo siya sa ibang tao. Okay, natutunan mo siya sa environment mo. Kaya nagkaroon ka ng ganong tawag dito, behavior, no? Kaya ka nagkaroon ng behavior. So that's what behavior is. It's either there is yung mga stimuli. Ito po yung stimulus response, no? You were triggered by the environment and you're also reinforced by what's happening in the environment. Or it could also be observational, na obserbahan mo, ginaya mo. Okay? Kaya this is very true among children. No, nakakalungkot, no? Kaya may mga batang kriminal siguro because they were brought up with that type of community, no? With that type of orientation. Kaya ayan, no, nagkakaroon na ng problema kahit bata pa. Okay? And then we have, aside that, we have humanistic and existential. Ito po yung, when you say humanistic po, is you fail to be aware and of your be aware of yourself. No, hindi mo na satisfy yung mga needs mo. Hindi mo nga ata na-identify yung mga wants and needs mo, yung potentials mo, you were not able to realize that. Kaya nagkakaproblema ang isang tao. Existential is hindi mo alam ang reason bakit ka nandito. You fail to determine your purpose in life. Okay, existentialism po yan, no? Being in this world, why am I here? Ano ba ang dapat na mission ko? Okay? So, I believe my mission is to become a teacher and a mental health professional. And I am living my life because that is what I believe the reason why I'm here. So, parang ganun po yun. So, dapat na nalalaman natin, ano ba yung purpose ko sa buhay? Okay? And then also interpersonal, of course, ito po yung, somehow it's the same with behavioristic. Kaya lang kasi sa behavioristic, it also involves yung mga conditions na nangyayari. Pero ang interpersonal is yung mga nakakasalamuhan nating tao. Hindi natin namamalayan na i-impluwensyahan po tayo. Okay? And there are a lot of people who are actually highly impressionable, no, just to feel that they belong or nakikisama. So, and because of these negative influences, nagkakaroon din ng mental health issues ang mga tao. Okay, next please. Other reasons could be psychosocial. There is the presence of childhood trauma na deprive, no, ng kalinga ng magulang. There is a pathogenic interaction with parents, and of course yung pathogenic din yung family structure, no? And then aside from the psychosocial, of course sociocultural. Dito po pumapasok yung pandemya na nangyari, yung war and violence. Can you imagine, a lot of people are now suffering from mental health disorders in Ukraine. No, it's really traumatic. So that's a socio-cultural tawag dito, causation, no? There's also yung mga deviant social rules, discriminations, prejudices, no? Economic and employment problems, technological, ipo-point out ko to, social media. Social media can actually affect our mental health. So dapat filter po natin yan, yung pinapasok natin sa attention natin. If it's not healthy for us, iwasan po natin. Okay, next please. Okay, this is the diathesis model. Okay, ano po ba ito? So according to this model, no, psychopathology is most likely to result. Psychopathology po is abnormal behavior or abnormality or mental health mental illness, no? It is most likely to result when a person with a diathesis experiences a stressor. Hindi po ibig sabihin, kanina kasi, diba, pwede kasing part of the biologic, heredity rin po kasi can be a source, a causation, meaning namana mo. Like for example, if your parents have schizophrenia, you're more likely to experience schizophrenia. And for example, your parents has antisocial personality, it doesn't necessarily mean, it may, but it's not automatic. Kasi ang sinasabi dito, kung wala po yung presence ng stressor, pwedeng hindi lumabas yung disorder. So tignan po natin, no, diathesis is yung predisposition, meaning pwedeng yung namana mo, heredity. And then yung stress, may nakaranas ka ba ng untoward event that could trigger, no, the manifestation of a disorder. So if there is diathesis and there is no stress, wala rin pong disorder. Siyempre, kung walang diathesis, walang stress, walang disorder. Kung no diathesis, kahit may stress, possible na walang disorder. Ang dangerous po dito is you're already predisposed, no, regardless of the causation, no, biologically, and there's also the presence of stress, then that would tawag dito, yan po yung magsa-start, no, that would trigger the manifestation of a psychological disorder. Okay? Next po. So paano po ba dinadiagnose ang mental illness? I don't know if some of you were able to undergo, nagpa-consult na po sa isang mental health professional, okay? Hopefully, no, pag meron pong nakakaranas yan, no, maganda po nagpo-consulta tayo sa mga professional. Well, the diagnosis involved the conduct of physical exam. Bakit po? Physical, may kasamang physical exam. Remember po, biological is a part of the causation. So it's important na ma-rule out muna na baka brought about by a medical problem, kaya may mental health problem. Possible po kasi yon na it's not really psychologically caused but it's biologically caused. No, yan po yung tinatawag nating baliktad pala yung nasa isip ko. Anyway, if it's biologically caused, it's important na gamutin muna yun medically. Okay? Baka mamaya pag nawala yung medical condition, wala na rin yung mental health disorder. So, hindi na siya kailangan ng psychotherapy. Okay. Now, if the case is the rule out si medical cause, then it's psychologically caused. Okay? So, psychosomatic siya. No? At psychosomatic if it's psychologically caused and it manifests, possible din po yun. Okay, so it's important na ma-rule out muna yung presence ng medical condition. Kaya merong physical exam. Now, after that, there is a psychological evaluation. This involves interviews, no, psychological assessment, observation, also yung ini-interview din po yung mga relevant people, no, na nakaka-observe doon sa tao. So maano po yan, no, mabusising klase ng evaluation. Hindi po yan na sumagot ka lang ng isang test, no. It actually involves a battery of examination. Kaya wag po tayong magse-self-diagnose, no? That's actually very dangerous, no. And then of course, after that, pag may napag-alaman na there is a clinical, no, a mental health illness, then the psychologist or the psychiatrist can come up with a treatment plan. Now, the psychiatrist, ang treatment plan niya, it's more of the medication that will be given, no, to the patient or client. And of course, the psychologist on the other hand will plan the psychotherapy, no, to help treat the patient. So it's a collaboration. Next po. Okay, so ano ba yung mental health and well-being looks like? Okay, so kanina natamaan na natin yung mga area para masabi mo na okay yung mental health mo. So ito po yung maganda nakikita natin. First is, of course, your basic needs are provided. Okay ba? Okay ba yung basic needs mo? Nakakakain ka, shelter, clothing, healthcare, financial security, and education. We're able to be provided. Because the basic needs, if not if it's not satisfied or not met, pwede rin pong maka-add up yan sa mental health. Okay? So good sa basic needs. Another is you have a control over your life, meaning you were able to shape your life. You have a say, no? May boses ka. And then your feelings, you are listened to, you are respected. Yeah, no? Maganda that you have control over your own life. Next is you have a good attitude about yourself, meaning positive self-esteem, okay yung confidence mo, you're happy with yourself, you feel confident to speak about your opinion, and you also respect yourself. No, that's attitudes about self. Next is you have purpose in life. You are hopeful about life. You're hopeful about future. You have a desire to live a fulfilling life. No, that's a sign that you have a mental health and well-being. And next is you have a good relationship with other people. No, you have a sense of belongingness. No, you're able to socialize and deal harmoniously with people. You have a good emotional attachment with the members of your family and with your friends. And of course, the last one is you engage yourself with activities that are personally rewarding, yung mga gusto mo, no? And it provides satisfaction on you. So kung nami-meet to, then you have a good mental health and well-being. Okay? Next, please. Okay. So ano ba yung magandang self-care na tinatawag, no? Self-care techniques. What if, ma'am, nakakaranas ako ng mga difficulties na, what can I do, no? Okay. It's important that you pay attention to how you're feeling. Dapat alam mo, ano yung actually, part of the treatment talaga is journaling. No? Tinitignan mo ano yung nararamdaman mo, ano yung naaano mo sa katawan mo, no? It's important that you take note of that. Okay. Okay, and then of course, talk about the way you feel. This is actually very difficult for some people. No, they feel that talking about their feelings actually makes them weak. Pero mali po yun. No? It's really hard to talk about your feelings. And once you're able to do that, it means that you're a very strong person. Mali po yung notion na it's a sign of weakness. Showing your vulnerability to other people is actually is a strength, no? It's a strength of people. Kaya maganda po na, of course, dapat trusted to, mga trusted individuals. You can talk about your feelings to trusted individuals. And then, learn to identify your triggers. Ano ba yung mga bagay na nakakalungkot sa'yo? Like for example, if social media triggers you to experience negative distress, then of course, filter. Okay, may mga tao na hindi nakaka-trigger, medyo iwas ng konti. Okay, dapat alam natin yung nakaka-trigger sa atin. And it's also important to be physically active. Because if we're physically active, like maganda talaga na we engage in meaningful physical activity like exercise because it releases happy hormones, no, endorphins. So it's hindi lang yung active, kasi yung pawis, no, pag naglalabas ka ng pawis talaga, it feels good for someone. Okay? But you also engage in the relaxing. Alam mo rin dapat kung paano mag-relax, no? Okay. And then, of course, healthy diet. That's very important. Meron na po kaming tinatawag ngayon na nutritional psychology wherein there are certain foods that could actually help you if you're experiencing anxiety, stress, or depression. No? Foods such as, okay, ano ba yung mga rich in potassium and magnesium. Okay? So, ano po yung mga yan, no? Saging, avocado, fruits, marami pong fruits and vegetables, no, broccoli, na chocolate, no? These are actually very good for mental health, no? Rich in potassium, of course, definitely saging, no? Nakakita na po ba kayo ng unggoy na depressed? Diba? Wala naman. Joke lang po yun. Okay, sige. And then, of course, you have to know what makes you do something you enjoy. Okay, I'll give you one technique po. Okay, sa positive psychology, they have this notion. Yung tinatawag po nila is 1:3. So, if you experience one negative event or one distressful event, tapatan nyo daw yun ng 3 makakapagpasaya sa inyo. So, for example, ano yung 3 nakakapagpasaya sa'yo? Like, for example, you like milk tea, then you buy milk tea. You listen to your favorite song, no? Good music. And then, for example, you play with your dog, no? That makes you happy. So, pag ginawa mo yung 3 yon, kaya niya ng parang tabunan yung negativity or yung distress na naranasan mo. That's actually 1:3 ratio. That's one of the techniques given by the positive psychology. Okay? And then of course, stay in touch with other people. Isolation is not good. Hindi naman po sign na dapat maraming tao, no? Hindi po ito paramihan ng kaibigan. It's about the quality, not the quantity. Dapat yung mga tao na alam mong positibo rin, no, tutulungan kang umangat, no, they will encourage you, not hindi yung they will put you down. Okay, so make sure that you stay in touch with positive people. And of course, if it's an extreme case, seek professional help if necessary. Okay, next please. Okay, sa Tagalog, bibigyan ko lang gusto ko siyang ilipat sa Tagalog, no, na magandang gawin pag ikaw ay nakakaranas na ng distress. Ito, dapat matuto kang huminto. Okay, kasi overwhelming po yung pakiramdam ng pagiging distress. Dapat huminga. Hinto, hinga, and then haplos. Most of the time, tawag dito, pag nakakaranas tayo ng problema, dun pa yung time na minsan nag-iisa tayo no? Okay. Yung haplos, not necessarily na hahanapin mo sa ibang tao. Actually, you can gently care for yourself, no? Kaya may mga, one of the signs na pag inaano mo is you're actually parang patting yourself, no, you're encouraging yourself. That's very good. Importante po kasi na matuto tayo na to take care of ourselves, no, hindi yung laging nakadepende tayo sa ibang tao. Okay, hugot means ilabas. It's important that you learn. Same thing din po yun, yung few friends na pwede niyong paglabasan ng inyong mga hinaing or yung mga pakiramdam. Okay? Hugot, pwede kang humugot sa mga kaibigan, pwede ka rin humugot sa Diyos, di ba? Spirituality is also very important, no? Yung having faith, no? Dapat meron po tayo niyan. And then, halakhak, no? Actually extreme form siya, pero learn how to be happy still despite of the problems. Hanapin mo pa rin what makes you smile. And then himig, yung iba kasi ang paraan nila, music is actually a very good source of healing. So himig, yung iba siguro activity, no, yung hataw or it's all, naiisip ko kasi puro H. Okay, before you take your, but of course, despite of the difficulties, dapat marunong ka pa rin humakbang. Kahit gradual lang, no? You have to move forward with your life. Okay? Wag, kahit huminto ka, it doesn't mean that you really have to stop permanently altogether. You still need to move forward, no? Kailangan humakbang. Para ikaw ay maghilom at makahango ka. Yan, sa distress na nararanasan. Okay. Next, please. Now, ito po yung mga pwede nating gawin kung hindi tayo yung nakakaranas. What if ibang tao yung nakakaranas? So there are two situations, no? It could be a non-urgent situation or it can be an urgent situation. Ano po ba yung non-urgent at saka yung urgent? Okay. Okay. Sa non-urgent situation, ito po yung maybe people are experiencing distress, pero it doesn't necessarily mean na in danger na sila with other people or in danger na sila sa sarili nila. So what can you do? Okay, listen. Kadalasan po, ang tawag dito, ang mga taong nakakaranas ng problema, hindi po yan humihingi ng advice. Ang kailangan lang po nila is yung makikinig sa kanila. So wag po nating ipilit yung ating point of view. Kasi ang ano po dito is yung ma-release lang nila yung tension na nararamdaman nila sa loob. So makinig lang po yun ang give them time to talk and try to be empathic, no, understand the situation from their point of view. Of course, you have to be sympathetic and not dismissive. Nakakalungkot na yung mga tao pag, ano ba, yun lang naman yung problema mo, affected ka. Iba-iba po kasi ang tao, no? Iba-iba ang kanilang threshold, no, sa pain. Okay, iba-iba ang orientation. So, it's important we have to be sympathetic even if we don't understand what they're going through and help them feel supported and listened to and acknowledged. And of course, you have to make appropriate referrals if needed. So later, I'll be giving yung mga mental health providers na pwedeng lapitan. Okay? But you cannot, of course, solve the problem for that person. No? It's important that the person learn how to solve his or her own problem. Hindi po tayo spoon feeding. Kailangan matutong tumayo sa sariling paa ang isang tao. And of course, you cannot, kung ang isang tao nakakaranas ng problema, you cannot take the responsibility for their emotional state or actions. Bakit? Sila po kasi yung nakakaranas nun. Okay? At sila lang ang pwede ring mag-regulate ng kanilang emotion tsaka thought. Of course, it should be guided by professionals as well. Now, ano naman yung urgent situations? Okay, next please. Yung mga urgent situations, ito yung risk of harm. Harm to oneself and harm to other people or harm to property. Such as disoriented talaga yung tao, out of touch with reality, and there's already the presence of suicidal thoughts and plans. So anong gagawin? Try to stay calm, okay? Engage with the person if possible, but make sure that you put safety first, okay? You have to keep an accurate written record kasi kung ikaw ay witness, pwedeng magpakwento sa'yo, no? Yung people in authority when it comes to mental health. And then, of course, you have to prioritize the safety of the client and the safety of other people in that specific scene. Make sure you support by talking to people who are knowledgeable about the situations, no? Yung mga mas nakakataas. And of course, it is important that any referrals or agreed action plans are always followed up. So ito yung talagang tatawag ka na ng mga mental health professional because they know what to do in such cases. Okay? Next, please. And of course, in cases of suicide po, dapat talaga alam mo kung sino ang point person, yung parang emergency person ng isang tao, no? So, lalo na kung yung kaibigan mo, para alam mo in extreme cases, alam mo kung sino yung tatawagin mo na pakikinggan niya. So yun yung importante. Okay. So ano ba yung binibigay na serbisyo pag sinabing mental health services? Okay. Because ang mental health services po, it involves psychoeducation, meaning giving awareness and information to people what mental health is, just like what I'm doing right now. This is a form of psychoeducation. And then, of course, prevention. Okay, they give coping mechanisms so that even if negativities or adversities are not yet happening, you know how to anticipate and you know how to handle if that time comes, no? And then, so that's prevention. We also do psychological and psychiatric evaluation, no, depending on the mental health professional. Okay, so yung mga psychometricians like me, we do psychometric evaluation, meaning we assess objective, yung mga objective psychological tests, no, to help the psychologist in their assessment and diagnosis. And of course, we promote mental health. We program preparation din po. Programs can be for a certain organization or it can be an individual program like yung treatment plan, no? Ginagawa po yan. Kasama na rin po dyan yung psychotherapy, intervention and treatment. And then there's also policy formulations. We help out, like in my case, diba? Sumasali rin po ako sa mga discussions pertaining to mental health para mas ma-improve yung mga programa na ibibigay sa publiko. Okay, so this kasama po yan sa policy formulations. Okay, next. So ano po yung mga mental health providers? No, we have, of course, the Department of Health. Okay, we also have the city or the local health office. Meron na pong, if I'm not mistaken, lahat po ng city ngayon meron ng mental health office. So pwede po nating lapitan yan. Okay. The Department of Labor is also there for the workers, no? Meron na rin po silang mga programa at serbisyo. It's part of the occupational safety and health na standards that is being implemented in different organizations. We also have the PAP, or the Psychological Association of the Philippines. PPA is the Philippine Psychiatric Association. PNA is Philippine Neurological Association. PGCA is Philippines Guidance and Counseling Association. PMHA is Philippine Mental Health Association. And of course, NCMH, which is the National Center for Mental Health, or the Mental Health Hospital in Mandaluyong. So ito po yung mga service providers natin, no, dito na nagbibigay ng tulong. So pwede nyo po actually, i-search nyo lang po yan online at makikita nyo na po kung saan po yung mga opisina nila at nagbibigay po sila ng iba't ibang mental health services which I mentioned earlier. Okay, next please. Okay, I think I'm already in my last part, no? Tandaan po natin, no? Hindi natin pwedeng isa walang bahala. Oh yes, ang mental health because there is actually no health without mental health. So, as I've mentioned earlier, it affects your overall health, no? Your physical health is affected when there's no mental health. Okay? And with that, again, mental well-being is just as important as physical well-being and we need to maintain both. Pareho po dapat nating iniisip yan, no? Yung ating physical health and mental health to be able to stay healthy, functional, and productive in our society. With that, thank you very much for listening and I will entertain any questions that you have for me.
Ayan. Thank you so much po, Ma'am Maki, for that very insightful talk. Thank you po dahil pinagbigyan niyo po kami despite of your busy schedule. We really appreciate po, Ma'am. Salamat po. Sure din na maraming napulot yung mga participants natin for today. So ngayon, alam na natin kung gaano kahalaga ang pag-aalaga natin sa mental health. And also, alam na rin natin kung gaano ka-importante yung pag-recognize natin sa emotions natin, whether it's positive or negative. Importante din, syempre, yung pagkakaroon natin ng strong support system. Dapat i-surround natin yung sarili natin with people that are good for our mental health. So sabi nga nila, self-love isn't selfish. Naview lang natin siya as being selfish kasi we are not used of self-love. We are not used of taking care of ourselves. So ngayon guys, alam na natin na we should take care of ourselves more and we should always prioritize our well-being because choosing yourself and setting boundaries isn't selfish.
Yes, tama ka dyan, Rika. And with the talk of Ma'am Maki, mas nabuksan pa yung isip natin at mas napalawak pa yung understanding natin with regards to mental health. So na kung paano natin alagaan yung physical health natin is dapat ganun din natin aalagaan yung mental health natin. Kasi also, gusto ko rin sa diniscuss, sa mga diniscuss ni Ma'am Maki, gusto ko rin yung sa mga misconception with the mental health, lalo na ngayon na sobrang dami ng information na lumalabas with regards to mental health sa social media. So, yung mga kadalasan yung mga tao is nagre-rely din sa mga information na yun kahit minsan na hindi siya ganun ka-reliable. So, doon nag-uumpisa yung misconception. So, with that, we will turn the time over to Miss Alessa and Miss Keisha to assist our resource speaker for the question and answer portion.
Ayan, so thank you, Miss Sena. Now we can proceed to our question and answer portion. As we can see, partner, may question na agad tayo dito for Ma'am Maki.
Yes, partner, I will start reading the questions. Let's keep your questions coming, guys. We will try our best to acknowledge all of them.
So, ma'am, first question po. Ma'am, good afternoon po. Hereditary po ba ang any mental health disorders from Abdallah Mortaba?
Hindi lahat, pero may ilan na hereditary. Okay? Kasi part talaga siya ng causation, no, ng mental health disorder. Madami kasing mental health mga sa audience, no, kasi ang problema natin dito yung iba hindi rin masyadong familiar with the different psychological disorders. And actually, it isang buong SEM po yung abnormal psychology na subject. No, napakadami po niyan. Pero hindi lahat. That's my answer to your question. Again, ito po, itong pinapakita kong libro na sobrang kapal. Ayan, this is actually the DSM-5. Okay. So, nandito po lahat yung criteria to determine, at nandito rin po sometimes yung mga causation, no? Whether a certain disorder could be predisposed, meaning it can be hereditary. Okay. There are some illnesses that are hereditary, but not all. Okay. So, medyo malawakang kung itatakel ko lahat bawat isa. So it's not ideal. Pero there are some which are hereditary. Especially mga psychotic disorders, mood disorders. Okay, mood disorders are actually hereditary din. Okay. PPT ko? Pwede naman. Sige, okay lang. No problem. Ayusin ko lang siya bago ko ibigay.
Yan, ma'am. So for the second question po, ma'am. Good afternoon po, ma'am. What is the best response po sa mga taong nagsasabi na nagsisimba ka pero bakit ka depressed?
Okay. Alam niyo, yung spirituality po, that's part of the aspect of aspect of personality, no, ng isang tao, no. It's nire-recognize na yan ngayon ng psychology na dapat bawat tao may spirituality. Hindi religion. Iba po ang spirituality sa religion. But you have a faith, no, from a divine being. So regardless of your religion, as long as you have faith, no, okay, it's important. Nakakatulong siya sa isang tao. But it doesn't necessarily mean na hindi ka na makakaranas ng distress, no? Okay. So hindi po kasi hindi therapy ang pagsisimba pag ikaw ay may psychological disorders, no? Though we recognize that nakakatulong siya sa isang tao to be able to cope. It's one of the coping mechanisms, but it's not a treatment or a therapy. So yun yung siguro yun yung magandang tanong. Okay. And there's more to life than parang hindi lang din yun yung aspeto, no, yung spirituality. Yes, it's an aspect, pero may iba pang aspeto na pwedeng nag-cause ng sa'yo ng distress. So dapat holistic kasi ang tingin natin sa mental health. Well, nakakalungkot, no? Kung yun lang yung tinitingnan nila, yung pagsisimba, no? Medyo mababaw yung ganung pananaw. It's beyond that.
Next question po, ma'am. Ang mental disorder po ba ay directly affected ang brain?
Ang mental health illness ay directly... No, not all. Parang same din yung tanong kanina, if it's hereditary. Diba nakita nyo naman doon sa diniscuss ko, yung perspectives on causality, madami. Biological is just one. Okay, so it's not necessarily biological yung cause. It can be psychological cause. I'll give an example. Ano ba yung mga may psychosomatic? Meaning, pwede kasing mag-manifest siya physiologically and then makikita wala ka namang sakit. Okay? Then that could be psychologically caused. Okay? Ito yung mga somatic symptoms disorder. Okay? So walang problema sa physiological mo, but then there is a problem with your behavior. So hindi laging sa brain lang. It can be socially caused, diba? Ayun, nakita naman natin, marami siyang cause. Okay, it can be based on your perspective, your thinking, no? You have faulty thinking. Cognitive yan. Okay, it can be psychosocial. It can be sociocultural. So depende po yan. Hindi laging yung may problema sa So hindi tignan po natin lahat ng aspeto. Parang dami ko nakikitang tanong. Okay.
So next question po, ma'am. What are the classifications po in the diagnosis of depression? It turns out po kasi na ang dali na gamitin ang salitang depression.
Ay, okay. May po yan, may criteria. Okay, ang to be clinically depressed, no, it takes months. A pattern, no? There's already a pattern, no? Yung moods mo talaga ay very low for a long period of time. And yung depression po, yung po kasi, yung mga mood disorder, there are different kinds of mood disorder, no? Yung clinical depression, how long, no? Titingnan natin the course, the onset, anong nag-trigger, what are the conditions, is already crippling, are you functioning, are you or not functioning anymore, what goes on with your thoughts, Okay. So yun yung mga tinitignan para malaman if you are already clinically depressed. And sabi ko nga kanina, evaluation, hindi lang yan pagsagot ng isang test. Kailangan mag-undergo ka ng test. We have a test for that. No, I think nababalitaan nyo na yung Beck Depression Inventory. That's one. That's only one. Okay, we have DAS. No? Pero dapat, it's a battery of tests. Nakausap ka talaga. There is an in-depth interview. And then there's also yung observation ng mga taong nakakasalamuha mo as to whether nakikita talaga na you're not already functioning. Diba nakita nyo kanina yung 4Ds, no? Is there the presence of deviance, distress, dysfunction, and danger? Then that could, yan yung pinaka-sign, no? Para malaman mo if there could already be a manifestation of a clinical depression. Or do I have to read the clinical? Masyado kasing technical na if I'm going to read the clinical criteria pa of depression. Okay. We'll ano tayo, introductory lang kasi of mental health yung inano ko. Okay.
Next question po, ma'am. Masasabi po bang mental disorder yung delayed ang growth ng tao?
Anong specific na delayed ang growth? Kasi meron din tayong learning disability, di ba? Nalala niyo mga iha, mga psych majors, di ba? Okay. Meron din tayo na yung tinitignan yung delayed in what? Oo, delayed in what? In learning, there's a problem with learning. Yes, we have learning disability. Okay. Delayed in learning. Yes, there is a learning disability. If it's delayed in learning, yes. It's part of the neurodevelopmental disorders that we have in our DSM. Yes. What else?
So next question po, ma'am, from our FB live viewer. Normal po bang hindi makaramdam ng kahit anong emotions pag sobrang stress?
Possible. Hindi ka nakakaramdam ng I don't think it's apathy. You're overwhelmed. There are too much emotions and you feel numb. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there's the absence of emotions already. Overwhelming na siya at marami, it's a mix of emotions already. Okay. At saka ang stress din kasi, diba, it's more of, nandito siya sa cognitive, no? Kaya nakafocus siya, ang dami-dami mo nang iniisip, no? Okay, kaya minsan parang na-overwhelm ka na dito sa part na to in your cognitive aspect at hindi mo na na-assess yung affective, meaning emotions mo, affective state mo, okay? Or either you're overwhelmed or you're numb. Possible yun, yes.
Next question po, ma'am, from Mr. Benjan Kada. Ano pong pwedeng gawin kung yung binibigay mong support is napapansin yung hindi gaano nakakatulong?
Paano ba yan? Paano binibigay na support? Hindi nakakatulong. What do you mean hindi nakakatulong? Kasi ang healing po kasi, okay, hindi kasi biro yung mga taong nakakaranas ng mental health problem. Hindi ora-orada na dapat makakita kaagad ng change, no, in the behavior of the person that you're helping. Okay. Bakit? Kasi madaming tumatakbo sa utak ng taong yan. Okay. So if you're expecting immediate change and immediate recovery, mali po yun. No? It's actually a process. Proseso po siya. Okay, kaya nga po sa mga sa mental health professionals, no, isa sa pino-point out ko sa mga bata lagi, ang importante is meron kang patience and persistence, hindi ka magi-give up sa isang tao. Eventually, papasok yan sa kanya, pero hindi pa niya maproseso sa ngayon. Depende yun kasi sa pinagdadaanan niya at sa mga tumatakbo sa utak ng isang tao. Okay, so you never know. Namamaya pala, akala mo hindi pumapasok sa kanya, pero possible eventually, no, sa kanya maproseso yun. Hindi ako naniniwala na, parang yung tulong, walang effect sa isang tao. Eventually, papasok yung tulong na yan. As long as you're consistent in helping or giving support to a certain person. Kailangan yun mararamdaman din yun ng tao eventually.
So next naman po, ma'am. Paano po makakapag-seek ang isang tao ng mental health services if lack siya financially?
May mga free. Maraming mga free po tayo. Like yung clinic namin, yung Psych Start, it's based in Baguio, but we give free consultation every last Sunday of the month. Even other clinics, they give, may iba-iba silang schedule for free consultations. So, marami naman pong nagbibigay ng free consultations. You can actually call ang NCMH, of course, they also provide, kung may, ang PMHA may bayad, pero very, minimal lang din yung bayad ng wag din natin kasi panghinayang, ito lang, wag din natin hinayangan din kung magbabayad tayo ng konti, because we are talking about professionals here who are doing their jobs, no? We are seeking their services, no? So tama din naman na, especially kung private yan, no? Dapat din naman talaga bayaran. Okay? However, there are also other psychological clinics kasi na sobrang mahal. Lalo na dito sa NCR, medyo mahal siya. Kaya nga maganda na may virtual consultations na ngayon, no? E-counseling na ginagawa. Kasi mas mababa yung mga provincial rates, no? Yung mga and medyo konti pa kasi yung ating mga psychological clinics, no? Konti pa lang po kasi yung mga psychologists talaga sa Pilipinas, no? So I really encourage our psychology majors, especially our students, no, that eventually, no, you pursue your master's and doctorate degree and become doctors and psychologists in the future para matulungan natin yung ating mga kababayan, ha? Okay, pero may mga nagbibigay po ng free consultations naman. Ayun na lang siguro ang
Ma'am, naka-mute po kayo.
Bakit ako na-mute? Automatic ba siya? Okay. So, isasama ko na lang sa aking slide yung mga nagbibigay ng mga free consultations para at least alam nyo kung sino yung mga pwede nyong lapitan. Okay?
Next question po, ma'am, from FB Live. Any general tips to improve mental well-being po?
Ay, diba nagbigay na ako ng mga tips kanina. General tips. Pag may mental coping mechanisms. Okay. Paano mo ba malalaman? Kasi there's a different topic when it comes to coping mechanisms, no? Ano ba yung mga unhealthy? Yun na lang siguro sabihin natin. Ano yung unhealthy coping mechanisms? Okay. May tinatawag tayo kasing yung mga defense mechanisms. Siguro naririnig nyo na rin naman yan. Those are unhealthy coping mechanisms. Also, yung youth tend to freeze. No, pag may problema, nag-freeze, hindi na gumagalaw. Parang natutulala na. They sometimes fight. No? Defensive sila, or they're defensive or offensive. Okay? They flight. Meaning, inaalisan nila yung sitwasyon na nakaka-stress sa kanila o yung mga taong nakaka-stress sa kanila. Okay? Or they feign. I think yung feign is they wear mask. Yun nga yung gumagamit ng mga defense mechanism, no, to cope with the anxiety and the stress they are experiencing. Or they fawn. Fawn meaning nakikisama na lang sila sa mga tao, hindi na nila, nire-repress na lang nila kung ano yung mga pinagdadaanan nila. These are all unhealthy coping mechanisms. Ano ang healthy? Okay. Ang coping mechanism is, as much as possible, harapin yung problema. Okay. Well, at first, it could be overwhelming, no? Okay? Pero ako naniniwala naman ako na lahat naman ng problema talaga may solusyon. Kaya nga you have to be, yung binigay ko kanina, you learn how to stop and analyze the situation. Okay? Kasi pag binuksan mo yung utak mo at medyo hindi mo masyadong personal lahat, na you learn how to compartmentalize. Pag lahat kasi pinersonal mo, wala na, no? Babagsak ka talaga. Okay. So it's important to look at things objectively, no? And because definitely you can find a solution to any problem. And aside, if kung clouded pa yung ano mo, yung thinking mo, maganda talaga na nakikipag-usap ka. Kaya dapat you have, choose your friends wisely. Trusted, yung mga trusted nyo, yung alam yung nakaka-encourage sa inyo, at saka bukas yung mata, bukas ang kaisipan, no? Para mas maintindihan nyo yung mga bagay-bagay sa paligid nyo. Okay. And nature is a very good coping mechanism. Nature, ano yung nature? When you say nature, water, air, no? You breathe, you drink water. Nakakaano yan eh, nakaka-refresh yan, no? Nakaka-decompress yan sa utak ng isang tao. And of course, dapat healthy living din, no? Kasi nga, nutrition can have a great effect. Okay? Pag kayo puro sugar, o kaya lagi kayo kahit yung exposure din sa social media, yung drown tayo, yung dopamine drowning because of exposure to radiations and so technology. Okay, hindi natin namamalayan, nakaka-apekto na siya sa hormones natin at sa emotions natin. Okay, so alamin natin, ano ba yung lifestyle natin, yung ways natin na possible na nagpo-cause din sa atin for us to feel distress. Dapat may awareness. Hindi ka ba natutulog ng tama? Ano yung kinakain mo? Marunong ka bang mag-relax? Diba? So, dapat reality check din. Ano yung binibigay? Kaya nga self-care eh. Ano yung binibigay mo sa sarili mo? Dapat i-evaluate mo yun. Kaya nga dapat talaga mahalin, no? Mahalin talaga ang sarili, alagaan. Because you cannot give something that you don't have. If you don't know how to take care of yourself, and how can you expect yourself to take care of other people as well? Yun, alagaan ng sarili. Anything else? Meron pa ba?
So next question po, ma'am. Ito from Zoom po. Considered po ba na mental health problem po ang anger issues? Any advice po how to handle those? In my case po kasi, my friend was terribly short-tempered in a way na out of hand na po ang actions niya every time na napipikon siya. How can I help to keep him calm?
Ako, naniniwala ako yung mga angry people, they're actually experiencing a form of depression. Yung mga angry people, sila yung mga malulungkot. Okay? Not necessarily. Possible kasi yung coping mechanism nila. No? Yung maninghal. Okay. Pero, dapat kasi malaman, ano yung reason? No? What's the reason behind being angry all the time? Okay, maganda makakwentuhan mo siya. No, alamin, no? Kasi mamaya, na napapansin mo siya, pero sa kanya pala, hindi siya aware na gano'n na pala siya. So maganda kaya talaga nabibigay, everything starts with acceptance. Dapat malaman ng tao kung ano yung problema niya. However, the danger there is that, minsan ayaw ng tao na napupuna siya eh. No? Yun yung, kaya dapat, ikaw being a friend, alam mo dapat kung paano yung tamang atake sa kaibigan mo. Okay, na para makapag-open up siya sa mga difficulties na nararanasan niya. Okay, especially yan, what triggers her to become angry at all times? Okay, mood, kasi ano yan eh, well, that's a negative emotion. Okay, but what's the reason behind it, of being angry? Hindi po kasi, I cannot be specific, kasi marami pong tinitignan for you. Kaya nga po ang therapy po is actually individualized, customized. Hindi po yung depression, ito lang ang therapy, ito yung gagamitin. Hindi po ganun yun, okay? Depende yan sa kondisyon ng tao, sa sitwasyon niya, sa intensity, no? Gaano na yung yung course, gaano na ba katagal na ganun yung nararanasan niya. Okay? Ano ang mga area sa buhay niya na apektado ng ganitong pag-uugali niya. Okay. And sometimes hindi yun hindi sila aware na ganun pala sila. May mga taong ganun po. So it's important that yung counseling, no? May makausap sila para mailagay yun sa attention nila at sa awareness nila. Because once they are aware, well, that's the start. Everything starts with awareness. No? Pag nandiyan natin yung acceptance na, okay, there's something wrong with me, ganyan-ganyan. And then, maybe finally, no, makikinig din sila paano masolusyonan yung ganong pag-uugali nila.
Next question po, ma'am. Is it possible that a person could be a mental health practitioner at the same time have a strong religious standards or beliefs? What would be the possible effects?
Ang isa pong mental health, one of our code ethics is the respect for individuality. So regardless of our own religion, hindi ho kami pwedeng magdikta, no? Kasi ang pinaka nirerespeto po namin is individual differences. Now, kung may mga nababalitaan man kayo ng mga mental health professional na nagkakataon pa na sila pa yung medyo diktador sa ibang tao, no? Well, nakakalungkot kung may ganun. I cannot speak for them. Okay, pero sa amin kasi as much as possible, hindi kami pwedeng mag-discriminate sa mga tao. At this is not about us, this is not about our principles, our own religious preferences, hindi naman tutukol sa amin. If we're going to give a service, ang focus namin is yung tao, no, na yung kliyente. Okay, so kung meron mang paniniwala si psychologist, as long as it doesn't cloud her clinical judgment, I think walang problema doon. Okay? Kasi mamaya sa kanya, personally, yung paniniwala niya, yun naman ang nakakatulong sa kanya no, sa coping mechanism niya sa sarili niyang buhay. Okay? As long as hindi siya nakaka-apekto doon sa mental health services na pinoprovide niya sa ibang tao, walang problema.
Yan. So, for our last question po, is there a difference po ba between narcissism and superiority complex?
Ay, opo. Superiority complex is a personality concept, right? Ang superiority, ito no, parang magdi-discuss ako ng tuloy ng theory ni Adler. Okay, sige. The reason why people feel superior is actually they feel inferior about themselves. No, actually it's a sign of insecurity for a person to feel superiority. Now, possible lang na hindi automatic na may narcissistic personality disorder na yung taong yun. Actually, superiority complex is not one of the criteria of narcissism. Iba yung kanyang criteria. Yung superiority complex, konsepto po yan with regards to personality na nagkakaproblema sa ibang tao. And it stems from their insecurity. And that's based on on the theory of individual psychology of Alfred Adler. Yung narcissism po, or narcissistic personality disorder, it's actually an abnormality. There's a problem with the personality of an individual. Okay? And isa siya sa mga mental health illness. At ang personality, para lang maintindihan natin, ang personality disorder kasi nagsistem yan mula childhood hanggang sa ma-develop sa kanya. It always stems from childhood. No? It's naging pattern yun at nadala niya hanggang sa pagtanda niya. And narcissism is when they try to manipulate others, no, they wanted to be in control of other people, and they have no remorse, no? Possible yun. Minsan it coincides with antisocial, no? Yun yung delikado. Kaya nga may mga serial killer. Minsan it's a combination of their antisocial personality disorder and their narcissistic personality disorder. Because what matters to them is to violate the law and of course to serve their self-interest. Ano lang yung gusto nila. No, walang remorse, walang pagsisisi. Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. Okay, and that's a more severe form. Okay, so yun yung pagkakaiba nila.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, as much as we want to cover all of your questions po, konti na lang po yung time na meron tayo. So, now po, that we're done with our question and answer portion, we have a short icebreaker para sa inyo, guys. So, we highly encourage everyone to participate dito sa icebreaker natin kasi may prize tayo. Ayun.
Yan, so excited na ba kayo guys? Bago tayo mag-start pala, binabati ko yung mga participants natin from Zoom and sa FB Live. So hello sa inyo dyan guys. Thank you for staying with us. And now we may call on Mr. Merwin and Mr. RJ to facilitate our icebreaker.
So, good afternoon guys. Good afternoon everyone. Kamusta naman tayo dyan? Ayun. Kami nga pala yung mga facilitators ng icebreaker natin for today. Ako nga pala si RJ, isa sa mga members ng BOMC Psychology Society. And kasama ko ang kapareho kong Pogi.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. I am Merwin Viloria and ini-encourage namin lahat na mag-participate sa icebreaker natin for today. And bago tayo magsimula, para sa mechanics ng game natin for today, syempre, there are several questions sa icebreaker natin which different levels. And may tatlo tayong levels guys, and first may dalawang question tayo for easy round, and second, 2 question from medium round, and last, 1 question for the hard or difficult round.
Yun. So, for our second mechanics, make sure na i-type nyo yung answers nyo sa ating chat box, and make sure din na tama yung spelling nyo ng mga sagot nyo. And wait for your answers to be acknowledged by our moderators. And for the third mechanics, the one who gets the correct answer or kung sino yung may pinaka mabilis na mag-type ng sagot nila sa chat box is sila yung mananalo.
And of course, para mas maging maboost yung well-being natin, we should always remember to enjoy and have fun. Ayan, so before we start, papakita lang namin yung quiz categories natin para sa icebreaker natin for today.
Ayan. For round 1, true or false. For round 2, finish the lyrics. And for round 3 is guess that movie. Alam ko excited na kayo, di ba? Lahat, dapat excited tayo lahat maglaro. Kaya without further ado, let's get started.
And para sa round 1 natin, for the easy round, just type true or false. Para sa first winner natin, kukuha tayo sa Zoom meeting and the statement is true or false. And ayan, you can tell someone has a mental illnesses. Yan. And ayun, may nakita na akong tamang sagot. Ang tamang sagot guys ay syempre false. Mental illnesses are not visible illnesses. You cannot see them. In fact, many famous people you know have diagnosed mental illnesses including Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds and Adele. Yon. And ito guys, teka lang, ang haba ng ang haba ng ang daming sumagot. Yon. Kita ko na. Congratulations kay Ronello. Ayan. You can message the DOMC Psychology Society to claim your prize.
Ayan. So, for our second round, sa FB Live naman natin kukunin ng mananalo. Napakadali lang ng question natin, guys. Yan. What is the title of today's webinar? Ano nga ba yung title ngayon? Ayan. So, ito, marami na ako nakikita sa FB Live na dalawa na. Ayan. Type lang kayo. And then, ayun. So, may nauna na. Congratulations kay Miss Skyla Villamor sa FB Live, and you can message DOMC Psychology Society to claim your prize. Thank you. Ngayon naman.
Dito ulit tayo sa sa Zoom tayo kukuha ng mananalo
Oo.
para sa first song na dudugtungan natin. Yan. Flash mo yung round 2. Ayan. Nobody said it was easy. It's such a shame for us to part. Ayan. Ano kaya yung kasunod na lyrics niyan? Ayan, marami naman ako nakikitang sagot. Ayan. Ang tamang sagot ay hard. This called is a Scientist by Coldplay. Ayan. Congratulations kay Daniel Cristitan. You can message the OMC Psychology Society to claim your prize. Daming participants. So,
yan, for our next lyrics, yan. But there's a hope that's waiting for you in the dark. You should know you're beautiful blank. Yan. Yan, sa FB Live tayo this time kukuha ng tamang sagot. So, yung mga nasa FB Live, kaway-kaway, sagot na kayo dito. Sagot kayo dyan, men. Ayan, so may nakita ako, mukhang isa lang yung nagsagot, ayan, dumadami sila. Pero may nauna na po. Congrats kay Miss Flora G. Fernandez. Ang isinagot niya is Just the Way You Are. Congratulations po. You can message the OMC Psychology Society page to claim your prize.
now, we are down our last round, which is the hard round. Para sa round na to, guys, hulaan nyo lang kung anong title ng movie na ipapakita namin sa inyo. And take note, guys, pwede nyo lang i-chat ang answer nyo right before ng video. So, ibig sabihin, kapag nag-send kayo ng answer tapos hindi pa tapos yung video, hindi namin ina-acknowledge yung answer ninyo.
And ayan guys, so hintayin nyo muna yung signal na sasabihin namin before kayo mag-type ng answers nyo. Ano, clear ba? Ayan, kung malinaw nga, patingin naman ako ng mga heart reaction dyan. Ayan. So eto na, let's start for our last and final round, which is Guess That Movie.
Here we go. All right, open.
This looks new.
Think it's safe?
What is it? Okay, caution. There is a dangerous smell, people. Hold on, what is that? This is disgust. She basically keeps Riley from being poisoned, physically and socially. That is not brightly colored or shaped like a dinosaur. Hold on, guys. It's broccoli! Well, I just saved our lives. Yeah, you're welcome.
Riley, if you don't eat your dinner, you're not going to get any dessert.
Wait, did he just say we couldn't have dessert?
That's anger. He cares very deeply about things being fair.
So that's how you want to play it, old man? No dessert? Oh, sure. We'll eat our dinner right after you eat this.
Riley, here comes an airplane.
Oh, airplane. We got an airplane, everybody.
Ayun, so guys, kagaya ng sabi namin kanina, wait for our signal. So, yung signal namin is ngayon. Pwede nyo nang i-type ngayon. And so, ang dami nang nag-type sa FB Live tsaka sa Zoom. So, wait lang po. Masyadong marami.
Yan, ang bibilis ng kamay ng mga natin participants.
Kaya nga eh.
Lang. Sino kaya?
Pero yung ang dami. So sa FB Live guys is wait lang. Sino ba to? Si Miss Samora Marian. Siya yung nanalo sa FB Live. Guess That Movie.
Congratulations sa kanya, and you can message the OMC Psychology Society to claim your prize. Thank you.
Ayun. So, thank you everyone sa lahat na nakipag-participate sa aming icebreaker, and congratulations sa mga nanalo. And sana suportahan niyo pa rin kami on our future activities. Thank you everyone. Goodbye.
So, ayan guys, I see that everyone enjoyed the game that RJ and Merwin prepared for our participants. Thank you so much for participating in our icebreaker. So, Ma'am Maki, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrapped up po?
What do you mean, do I need to cover what?
Promote lang po, ma'am, kung ano po yung...
Promotion of mental health. Siguro ang mental health po kasi bagong-bago pa lang, no? Okay. So, maybe we should be part of the promotion of mental health, no? Since this is something that affects everyone. So maganda na lahat tayo ay maging involved sa promotion nito. And of course, I encourage all psychology majors to be an active promoter of mental health as well. Para matulungan natin yung mga tao, no, sa publiko na who are actually suffering from mental health. And of course, let's start to stop the stigma. Okay, and let's value mental health and well-being among individuals. So yun na lang siguro yung sasabihin.
So thank you everyone for engaging with our Ice Mini Breaker. I hope that you guys enjoyed and learned a lot from our resource speaker, Prof. Myrtle Macam. And to proceed on our program, may I call on Ms. Rochelle Esquivel for the awarding of certificate to our resource speaker.
Thank you so much, Senna. So for the awarding of certificate, the Ocampo Memorial College is pleased to present this certificate of recognition from Guidance and Counseling, Psychology Department, and DOMC Psychology Society to Professor Myrtle P. Macam for sharing her knowledge as a resource speaker at the webinar entitled Mental Health 101. Held on the 22nd of April 2022 via Zoom and Facebook Live. Signed by the President of Psychology Society, Johnny Jos Magallanes, our Psychology Society advisors, Professor Benjamin E. Lim, and Professor Frances Bell Shoto, and our Dean of College of Arts and Sciences and Head of Psychology Department, Dr. Rhea Luella S. Pfizer. Once again, thank you, Professor Myrtle Macam, for giving us your time and sharing your knowledge to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ayan. So, thank you so much, Ms. Rochelle. And now, may we call on Ms. Ayes Agustin for the post-evaluation form for you to receive your e-certificates.
Yeah, so guys, the link is now posted at the chat box. Kindly fill out the evaluation form for you to have your free certificates. Again, thank you for being with us throughout the webinar.
Picture? Photo op na ba?
Yes, so mamaya po after po ng announcement, mag-picture po tayo.
Okay po, so before we end this session, may we call on Mr. Johnny Jos Magallanes first, President of the UMC Psychology Society, to give us some reminders and announcements.
Good morning, everyone. I am Johnny Jos Magallanes, the current President of the UMC Psychology Society, and I hope you enjoyed and learned many things from Professor Macam. And I am here to announce the upcoming webinars for the month of April. So join us on April 26, Humor, Laughter, and Healing with our very own Dean Rhea Kaiser. On April 27, Evaluating Capacity to Learn and Ways to Establish Study Habits by Professor Benjamin Lim. And on April 29, Stress Management, Master, Relieve, and Survive, who will be tackled by Professor Frances Bell Shoson. And I hope to see you on our webinars for the month of April. Thank you very much.
Ayan. So, thank you, Johnny. Now, may we request our participants to open their cameras and may we call on Mr. Yancy Teves to help us with our photo opportunity.